Hello, everybody. You're coming back to the Double Say Sports Network, and for good reason. We've got ourselves a treat for you today. It's going to be the Catchers tier list. Joined by my co-host, Cole DeVito, we've got 45 catchers today. So let's get a move on. I'll be explaining the tiers for you real quick first before we get started. First, we've got MVP potential tier. Now, although catchers aren't really known for getting MVP awards, they're the position with the least amount of MVPs all time. We'll still have this tier for people who, if they're the top of the class, they're the best catchers in baseball, they could win an MVP if catchers were known for getting MVPs. Now, the All-Star tier is exactly what it sounds like. You wouldn't be surprised if they're an All-Star. The Almost All-Star tier, they're going to be reserved for people that are, you also wouldn't be surprised if they're an All-Star, but you wouldn't expect it. They'd be more someone that would be like a backup at the All-Star game or someone that just missed. Average, your average catcher. A serviceable starter is someone that can get the job done if he needs to, but he most certainly will not be someone that you want to put your whole franchise in. Career backup is exactly what it sounds like, in a minor league talent is someone that honestly has no place in the MLB. So, Mr. DeVito, how about you say we get started with Austin Barnes?
Austin Barnes, our first up.
Now, Austin Barnes, he's a guy that, he's not the best fielder. I mean, he's going to be 30 now. He's not the best fielder in the world, but he's not terrible. He's just somewhere around average for fielding. But his hidden stats also aren't great. Mr. DeVito, what are you thinking about our good old friend Austin?
Serviceable starter, career backup. I'm going to say serviceable starter for him.
You're going to say he's a serviceable starter? I would agree with you there because his fielding with, a 22% caught stealing percentage, it's nothing special, but it's around average. But he did have 6 defensive runs saved, and his hitting, I mean, he's not great, but he had 25 RBIs in 75 games. That'll get the job done if it needs to.
I'd say he's slightly below average, and I think serviceable starter is the perfect spot for him.
That's exactly what the serviceable starter category is meant for.
Exactly.
Now we've got Austin Hedges, one of 3 Austins on this list. Now, what are you thinking of Austin Hedges?
Austin Hedges, horrible offensive bat.
That's completely accurate. I mean, he's a guy who he hit below the Mendoza mark last year, and he had a 252 on base percentage last year. Most guys have a batting average above that.
However, defensively, the man was amazing.
You're right.
And
21 defensive runs saved. I mean, that's absolutely insane.
And that speaks for itself. I mean, that's amazing, literally.
And his caught stealing percentage was above league average at 33%.
I think for that alone, he could get a serviceable starter spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't give him average as physically demanding the catcher position is in terms of having fielding success, because his hitting is just so abysmal.
Yeah.
But if he could get that up to even somewhere like a 210 batting average, and somewhere around even a 290 on base percentage, then he could easily be average for me, because he's a fantastic fielder. I would maybe put him in a late game where maybe he'll only get one at bat, but gets a few innings in the field.
Yeah.
Now we have Austin Romine, the guy who has gone back and forth between a couple teams in his career.
That's
He
a lie.
started off. Oh, excuse me. I'm thinking of Andrew Romine.
Yeah, his brother.
Because Andrew Romine his brother was on the Tigers. Now he's on the Tigers. Excuse me. Sorry for that mistake. But he's a fantastic offensive catcher, at least not.
He really turned into it this year.
Not necessarily in terms of counting numbers as much as average and on base percentage, but with 310 on base percentage, 281 average, and on OPS around 750, you really can't deny that he's one of the better hitting catchers in the league. And if you look at his defense, it's right around average. It's nothing crazy special, but it'll get the job done. I think that he probably belongs in the average tier.
I agree. No bias there. He was a Yankee, but.
I mean, he's going to be 30, so I don't expect him to prove much more. or it's going to be 31, excuse me. I don't expect him to improve much more. But where he's at
Where
is
he's at now,
probably.
he definitely could have been a starter last year instead
Mhm.
of backup for the Yankees. But moving along, Buster Posey.
Buster Posey, he was regarded for mostly the entire decade as a top 2 catcher in the league, depending on who you ask. It was either him or Yadier Molina. But, I still think that he is still up there as one of the better catchers in the league. Unlike
For
Yadier
sure.
Molina, who is even older. He's 33, which is getting older, but he hasn't had that extreme of a drop off in his fielding. His fielding's still phenomenal, and hitting has had a bit of a drop off. I mean, in terms of the last 2 seasons, he was consistently above 80 RBIs, but the last 2 seasons he had combined for 79. But that's also in part due to his innings being down. He only played 105 games, 114 the last 2 years versus over 140 those years. I think someone of the grandeur of Buster Posey, he's still an all-star to me.
I definitely agree. Yeah, personally, I would even say he can't be MVP potential. He's 33.
Yeah,
But
and
I can
I'm
still
sad.
say he's the top 5 catcher in the league, for sure.
I agree. You
It's
couldn't say the same.
close.
You
It's
couldn't
so
say the same about
close.
someone like Yadier Molina, but he's up there. I was debating earlier putting him maybe almost all-star, but that's predicting a bit more of a decline, and I don't want to do that to the guy, especially because he, for his career, has been, for the most part, very consistent.
I mean, he only has 11 years, and I'd say if he didn't have 11, I mean, he could go to the Hall of Fame with 11 years, but I don't know.
Probably
He's
needs
definitely, I would, if he played more, he's definitely a Hall of Famer, for sure.
his counting numbers like home runs and RBIs this year suffered just a bit because his game just.
Easily one of the best catchers all time.
But exactly, he's one of the better catchers all time, and if he played 140 games, his home runs and RBIs would be closer to the level that they were in his late 20s.
hmm
Let's move on to Carson Kelly. Carson Kelly is he's a really young guy actually, and he's in that Arizona Diamondbacks system now. And honestly, I'm a really big fan of this guy. He's only 25. He has some really solid offensive stats. He had 18 home runs in only 111 games. His batting
348 on
average,
base.
that's really, really good. His on base plus slugging was 826, which I really like. Now, the only thing that's holding me back a bit is last year was his first full year. I mean, he had a couple years with only a handful of at bats when he was in St. Louis, but he came to Arizona, did really well. His fielding is right around average, but with him, you know that you're gonna. I mean, hopefully, you know that you're gonna get 15 to 20 home runs, around 50 RBIs, and someone that can get on base because this is his biggest sample size last year, and we've seen that out of him. So I think that he could probably be around the. I don't know. What do you
I
think, Mr. I'm thinking of between average and almost all-star. He only had one full year though, so I think it's too early to
I
say much.
I don't think I think he could be above average because he's 25. I mean, he could be MVP potential. It's not what he can be. It's what he is. And I personally think he's almost all-star.
You think? I think we just need to see another year out of him before we put him in almost all-star because this was his first full year, and
Sure.
before that, I mean, he only had about 120 total career at bats, but he wasn't that productive in those 120 at bats. We'll see how he does as a full-time starter now. He'll be getting the nod over Alex Avila now, but we'll see how he does. I think that he definitely has the potential to be an almost all-star, if not an all-star, in the
I
next
think if there was a
year
season
or
this
two.
year, he would have been one.
If there was a full season, there would be, but
Oh
hopefully
yeah,
we're getting close to a deal. Knock on wood.
we'll see.
As of this recording, the MLB PA had announced that 70-game deal. The owners aren't a big fan, but we'll
See
see
how
where
it
that
goes.
leads us. Next is Christian Vasquez. And, excuse me, not Christian Vasquez. I'm looking at the
Yeah,
wrong guy.
Chan Cisco.
Chance Cisco. Chance Cisco is one of the worst defensive catchers in the league. if we're being honest.
And he's not really too good offensively.
He's still young. He's only 24, but he had negative 11 defensive runs saved in only 52 games, which it's not going to fly, especially at, the catcher position.
Oh, yeah. I definitely could see this guy being a career backup.
I think so too, especially
I don't think minor league talent just yet, but
not yet, because he has shown a couple flashes. I mean, he was on pace for about if he had catcher starting time, he was on pace for about 40 RBIs, 16 home runs, which could be a lot worse. And he walks a lot. He had 22 walks in 59 games last year.
he does walk a lot.
So he has good plate discipline that shows. We'll see what he can do in the future, but he needs to get his defense up before we can say he's anything other than a career backup.
Agreed. Now
here we
is
have Christian Vasquez.
Vasquez.
I think that you could take the reins here.
I think Christian Vasquez, personally, I think we could put him in the all-star category, and he's never been an all-star, which is sad.
I completely agree. I mean, he's going to be 29. He's still got a few years left in his prime. And Mr. DeVito, how about you tell us some of his offense stats last year? Because let me tell you, they were fantastic for a catcher.
23 homers, 72 RBIs, and a 276 average in 482 at-bats. I mean, that is just amazing. Looking at his fielding, it was average.
No, actually, his
Above
fielding was
average.
well above average,
Actually, 5 defensive runs saved.
Look at he has a 38% caught fielding percentage too, which I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's top 3 in the league, I believe.
And the guy played 4 games at third base last year. I mean,
honestly,
I could see this guy being the top catcher in the league.
I might want to move him to MVP potential. Call me crazy. I know he hasn't had an All-Star appearance yet, but I want to put him to MVP potential because his fielding it's not absolutely insane, but it's definitely above average. I mean, he catches runners stealing like nobody's business, and his hitting is phenomenal. Top 3 hitting catcher in baseball, if I were to say so.
Definitely, I mean, I don't know if I could put him in the MVP category just yet. Last year was his first year where he really broke out. 2017, he had 290, but that was in 99 games. Still pretty good.
That's a lot of games for a catcher. You got to remember that.
That is a lot of games, true. I don't know if I could put him in MVP potential just yet. That's a close one.
I think he is a top tier catcher, and I think the name MVP potential might be throwing you off a little bit.
It probably is. Let's just put him there.
I think he would be up there because again,
he's definitely a top catcher.
He's gonna be an MVP or anything like that. It's more like a top tier, and I just made generic names for it.
He's definitely a top catcher in the league, and he deserves to go up there above all these other people. So
next, Danny Jansen. And Danny Jansen, he's another elite defensive catcher in the league.
Very elite.
With the Blue Jays, he's only had 2 years, but he's been phenomenal defensively.
Very young.
He's only 25 this upcoming season, or if there's a season, I keep saying that. But he had 12 DR saved and a 31% caught stealing percentage. Definitely both above average. His hitting's not terrible, but it's not great. I mean, he had 43 RBIs, 13 home runs, which is solid in 107 games. Just his batting average needs to get up a little bit. He hit 207.
Yeah, he did not have a great year offensively at all. However,
he's more known as a defensive guy.
Yeah, his defensive was great. And where do you feel he goes?
I think he's probably almost an all-star, especially given his young age. He has potential to get better. I mean, he's already one of the better defensive catchers in the league, and his counting numbers in terms of hidden weren't really that bad either. I think he belongs as an almost all-star with the potential as a 25-year-old to go up even further.
I was gonna say he's almost all-star to average. He falls in literally. I think he's literally in between. So I'm gonna agree with you and say almost all-star.
Okay, fantastic. Next, we're gonna have Francisco Mejia. Francisco Mejia, to me, he's just the definition of an average guy. He's not going to do anything special on defense, and he's not really going to do anything special for the Padres on offense either. I mean, his batting average. His batting average is actually really solid, 265. His on-base percentage, 316, was really good, but that hasn't led to runs for them. He only had 8 home runs, 22 RBIs in half a season last year. That doesn't lead to runs for me, and his fielding's just average, where I don't think that he could be put up above average. I mean, maybe if he goes somewhere where he gets more protection in the lineup to get those home runs and RBIs up, maybe then he'll be able to move up higher. But as of right now, he's not there yet.
I say he's average. That's what he is, average.
Now we have Gary Sanchez, who arguably, as you know, as a Yankees fan, he's probably the greatest hidden catcher in the league right now. Only 27. He's a 2-time All-Star. And honestly, I'm going to throw him straight up into the MVP potential. I think you could too.
No question.
He gets a bad rap on defense.
His defense it's not good.
It's not good. But people are trying to say that he's, like a Wilson Ramos, like someone that's just absolutely horrible on defense. And honestly, I don't think he's that bad. I mean, he does have a decent amount of errors, which do hold him back. But if you look at his defensive runs saved, it's just slightly below average. And his caught stealing percentage was 23%, which again is also below average. But it's not crazy below average, like 16, 17%, and the defensive run saved isn't like -6, -7, -8. We're looking like, damn, what happened here?
Yeah, and I mean his powers, 34 home runs in 106 games. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, and he's done that consistently throughout his career. I mean, he's already passed the 100 home run mark in his career at 370 games.
I mean, the average suffered, but other than that, I'm definitely a top catcher in the league, for sure.
He definitely is. And then we've got Grayson Greyer next with the Detroit Tigers. And man, every time that we do one of these tier lists, and this is only our second, but every time I see one of these Detroit Tigers, I just feel so bad for those fans. Because this guy, he's in 202. He had a 251 on base percentage. I mean, his offense is just abysmal. And
it's just bad.
His defense is below average as well. I mean, he's
not making it to the MLB on any other team.
No other team's going to have him in the MLB. He's hitting that Mendoza mark almost. He's got to be a minor league talent, no doubt.
For sure.
Now we have Jacob Stallings. Man, doing my preparation before this video, I was looking at him, and man, the Pittsburgh Pirates have a gem in him. I know he's going to be 30. He's a little on the older side, but he's a phenomenal catcher. He caught runners stealing 40% of the time, and he had 14 defensive runs saved. I mean, you can't get that anywhere else. Plus, his hitting, not his counting numbers, his home runs and RBIs are pretty weak, but so is the rest of the lineup. You can't really fault him for that. But his hitting's really solid, too. He had an OPS above 700. His on-base percentage was a respectable 325, and his batting average was a respectable 262. At the age of 30, I don't think he has much more to develop and get better at. But he's going to be in his prime, and he's going to be there for another couple of years. I think he's going to be I think he could be an all-star, personally, actually. because his fielding is phenomenal. And
His fielding's phenomenal. I think we just need to see the homer. If he wasn't on Pittsburgh, I mean, he
if he
needs
was
the production.
if he wasn't on Pittsburgh, he would probably have at least 30, 35 RBIs. And
Oh,
remember, that's only probably closer to 30 RBIs. Remember, that's only in 70 games.
I agree. His defense is top notch. I
I
mean,
think
the age is up there, but I agree with you.
he belongs in the All-Star category. Not necessarily that he will make an All-Star game, especially because people don't really take defense that seriously for a catcher, or in general, just because there isn't an easy place to get the stats. But I think if people started to look at defense more and more, he could be one, and he should be one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have James McCann, not Brian McCann, James McCann,
Nope.
and he's the younger McCann. He's going to be 30, but he was an All-Star last year for the first time in his career, and he had a really good year. He had 60 RBIs, he had 273 with a OPS nearing 800 at 789, and he was an above-average fielder. I think this is another piece of cake. He's an All-Star.
For sure. No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was an all-star last year.
Why not
Pretty
do
much
it again?
himself. Yeah, why not just
Now, the only thing is he's got to get off the White Sox to make that happen, because Yasmani Grandal's taking
True.
those.
He's going to be the backup to him now, which
gonna
I
be
don't think is too great. But he becomes a free agent after this year. So,
Mm-hmm. And if we were looking at just raw ability, he's an all-star.
oh yeah, for sure.
And the White Sox could probably, if this was a full year, I'm talking about though, if this was a full year, he'd get a decent return at the trade deadline. Obviously, it's not a full year, and we don't know what's going on with that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Now we have Jason Castro. He is possibly he's one of the worst catchers in the league. Not the worst, but he's definitely not good. He had a caught stealing percentage below 20, defensive runs saved -7, and he didn't do great at the plate either. It was his on base percentage was solid at 332, but his OPS was also solid 767. Actually, looking at it now, he's not terrible at the plate, not as bad as I thought he was, but
he's definitely better than some guys on this list at the plate. But his defense last year was just
it really isn't that good. And again, you need
not
to be a
good.
good defender as a catcher. I think he could be a serviceable starter though, just barely, because
I
his
think
hitting isn't horrible.
yeah, I was gonna say that's a career backup.
Yeah, I think serviceable starter is fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's gonna be 33, so he'll see a drop off in the hitting, but it actually was much better than I had originally thought.
Next up, we have Jeff Mathis.
Jeff Mathis, I mean, he's old now. I mean, he's probably got 1 or 2 more years left in him. He's in his late 30s, and he was a solid guy in his earlier part of his career, but now at this point in his career, he had a terrible year last year, both offensively and defensively.
He's really just on teams for his defense.
Exactly.
That's it.
He's always been that way. I mean, his career batting average is below the Mendoza mark, and his defense didn't save him last year either. So he's got to be a minor league talent. I don't think there's a doubt about it.
I don't think he's coming back to the majors and doing good.
No, you can't, and you can't expect.
Yeah.
He's 37 years old either. He had a good career, but it's time for him to.
It's over.
Up. Jorge Alfaro just came off his first year with the Miami Marlins last year, and it was a good one.
He had 262 back-to-back years.
That's not something you see every day. He caught runners a third of the time at stealing, which is solid. His defensive run saved is at -1, but that's right around average. Average is obviously 0. He had 18 home runs in that huge ballpark, 57 RBIs with little protection around him. I think I wouldn't put him as an all-star yet, just because his defensive runs saved aren't that great but definitely has potential to be an all-star, especially only as a 27-year-old.
Yeah, he's got the potential for sure. His bat is definitely his best thing, and he actually throws a lot of runners out, but he definitely needs to improve just a little bit to get to that all-star category.
On the defensive part.
Yeah, on the defensive.
Mm-hmm. Now we have JT Realmuto. It shouldn't come to a question. He's the best catcher in baseball.
Without
Some
a
people
doubt.
think it's Grandal, but we both think it's JT Realmuto, and he's the best catcher in baseball. He's obviously going to be in the MVP tier.
No, we don't even need to go over his stats, do we?
No,
Yeah,
everyone knows it by now.
we all
We
know
have
he's the best.
We have Kurt Suzuki, who, he's a fantastic hitter. I mean, he has been for his whole career. He had 17 home runs and 63 RBIs, and
He had a great year last year.
in just 85 games last year at the age of 35. But his fielding is just awful.
I'd also like to mention he struck out 36 times in 280 at-bats.
Yeah, this man doesn't strike out. He produces a lot at the plate. I'm not even going to mention that game against the Mets with Edwin Diaz blowing it. Anyways, I'm kind of salty about that if you couldn't tell. But he's terrible defensively, which really, if he was even average defensively, I'd put him as an all-star. But
Yeah, he's horrible.
his defense is so bad where I'd have to say it's just serviceable, because his defense, if it wasn't for his offense, he'd be out of the league by now. He had minus 15 defensive runs saved last year and a 10% caught stealing.
Yeah, I agree.
There's only so much your hitting can carry you, and maybe
He's
this year,
definitely not someone I'd want behind my plate.
if the universal DH comes in this year, it'll help him so much if he goes to that DH, because then he'll be an all-star.
He would
But
definitely be much better on an American League team.
100%, 1,000%, I agree with you. But with his defensive ability, I can't put him anywhere but serviceable. Now we have Luke Miley? I don't know.
It really doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
This Pittsburgh Pirate is
Toronto Blue Jay now.
He's absolutely
Is he a
awful.
pirate? Nope, he's a pirate.
Well, he's a
He was a
Pirate.
Blue Jay last year.
Yeah.
That's why. See how much it just doesn't matter to me?
Exactly.
Because he is so bad.
You see one of his stats, and it's 205. You're like, okay, maybe it's bad and average. He's not the best hitter. No, it's his on base percentage. That should tell you enough.
I mean, 205. Like, come on.
And he's barely an average fielder, if you want to call him that. That's not enough to, give him any credit further. And here's Martin Maldonado.
Minor league, for sure.
Oh, yes. Miley, whatever, is definitely a minor league talent. Now, here is Martin Maldonado. He's an interesting guy. I mean, he's had a bunch of really good defensive years as a catcher, especially in terms of catch and run steal. He's one of the best in the business there. But his offense really isn't great. I mean, he's someone that gets you 15 bad runs a year now, maybe 20.
Even playing twice for the Astros, his average has been horrible.
Yeah, seriously. I mean,
even with those trash can bings, come on, man.
I mean, he's a one-time Gold Glove winner, and he always gets runners out stealing. But I think because of how often he gets runners out stealing, I could put him in average. But yeah, I think I'm going to put him there because
I think he's an average.
I think I could put him there because his offense isn't like Luke Miley bad, and he still gets on base about 30% of the time. Last year is a 293. His career is a 289 on base percentage. Slugging percentage isn't that bad either. In the upper 300s. I think average is where he belongs.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we have Matt Wieters. Wieters?
Matt Wieters. Yeah, Wieters. He was one of the best catchers in baseball when he was in Baltimore.
He really was. And then
the AL. But he's fallen off ever since he left Baltimore. When he went to Washington, he wasn't great, even though he played a lot. And now in St. Louis, between him and Yachty, man, if they had those two in 2011, that
Oh
would
my
be the
God,
greatest battery ever.
that
But
really would have been good.
he started to fall off. His offense
His
isn't.
fielding's not that great anymore. It's not good at all, really.
No, it's not. His offense isn't great, at least in terms of batting average and on base percentage. But when he gets on, he's getting a ton of.
The
Not a
only
ton.
thing he had for him this year, 42% caught stealing percentage.
That's very good. I'm
That's
not gonna lie.
amazing.
That's fantastic. But if you look at his hitting,
Yeah,
214,
it's horrible.
268 on base percentage. The only thing I do like there is his slugging above 430. But that's only out of 36 hits, like, on the year, which isn't good. And his fielding, he does catch runners stealing, but he's struggled a little bit with pass balls this year. I mean, he had 9 wild pitches and 2 pass balls, so 11 total if you count them like that.
What do you
I
think?
think that he's still serviceable to me because he still catches runners stealing at a phenomenal rate.
He does.
He
Hits
still
from
gets
both
probably.
sides of the plate.
And he had, and if he played 162 games, which again you don't expect from a catcher, if he did, you would have had that 60 RBIs probably, and his on base, his slugging percentage was still solid because when he gets a hit, almost half the time it's an extra base hit. So I think he's still average, but it's hard for me to put him above that because he doesn't get a hit that often, anyways.
Yeah, at one point he was the MVP, but now he's wherever we put
He's
him.
just
Serviceable,
average.
sorry, serviceable.
Excuse me.
Serviceable. That was a major
Sorry.
brain fart right there. But anyway, next up is Mike Zunino.
This is an interesting guy. He
This
just
is a
got
very interesting one.
moved to Tampa Bay last year, and he had a horrible year. He hit well below the Mendoza mark. His slugging was 312. You see a lot of batters have his on base percentage there, and to have his slugging there isn't good. He wasn't impressive from the plate. However, where he did shine, this is how he's been for most of his career, is from fielding. He had 8 defensive runs saved, and he caught 40% or 39% of his runners stealing, which that's solid. That's really, really solid.
He tends to hit 20 home runs consistently, except for this year.
Well, that's because he had a lot less games this year. Though he had about 25 games less than the 2 years before.
He did, and the average was just god awful this year.
See, that's the thing. Like, I know his run production numbers are still solid. Like, his 162 game average last year would have been around 22, 25 home runs and about 70 RBIs. But at the same time, I can't justify someone hitting well below the Mendoza mark for that.
I agree.
I'd still put him around. It's really hard because
I'd say he's average personally.
I'd say he's average too, but it's hard to say because when you look at his defense and you look at his run production stats, you think he's almost an all-star, maybe even an all-star. But then you look at his percent stats, his batting average, his on-base percentage, his slugging, and you're like, who is this guy and why is he not? So it's really something that's hard to create, but I think we could put him at the average.
I think that's a great spot for him.
And this brings us to Mitch Garver. He's actually one of the better young catchers in the league.
Definitely he's only been offensively.
3 years. Probably, yeah. He had 67 RBIs, 31 home runs, only 93 games last year. His OPS was almost 1,000. Just want to throw that out there. But he's going to be 29, so he's a little older. Still not bad. And he doesn't get runners out when they're stealing. No, it's only 16% rate. But he doesn't really commit any error. He doesn't hurt his team from the field that much either because his defensive run saved was 1.
He had a great year.
Yeah, I think that he could I think he's almost an all-star. I wouldn't put him much higher than that, or any higher than that.
You don't think he's an all-star? 31
Actually,
homers, 93
what am I
games.
saying? What am I saying? He's definitely an all-star.
Definitely an all-star.
I was
The
thrown off
defense could definitely use some work, but he's definitely an all-star.
I was thrown off by that, but 16% is kind of bad. But the rest of his defensive numbers aren't horrible, especially his defensive run saved. He actually saved a defensive run? I think he's an all-star. His hidden stats are impossible to ignore, and his defensive stats are right around average, where you could still support him doing it.
Next is a guy I'm a huge fan of, but he's horribly on defense.
Omar Narvaez. Look,
Omar
you gotta
Narvaez.
remember that this is a guy that had a negative 18 defensive run saved last year.
Negative 18, literally. And 18% caught stealing.
Which both are pretty bad. He does fairly well on the offensive end. He had 22 home runs.
22 homers, 278 with a 353 on base percentage. That's solid.
Numbers. But again, at a position where you need defense as much as catcher, the highest I would be able to put him is average.
I was actually going to say average too.
I think that's around where he belongs, but on the lower end of average, because his fielding is so bad, where I do honestly want to put him at serviceable starter because of it, but I'm not going to, because his hidden stats are up there, really high up there, and in Seattle, it doesn't make much of a difference how he does fielding. They're going to lose anyways. Yeah. I hate to be that guy, but it's kind of true.
He's definitely average, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Pedro Severino.
Pedro Severino, not to be confused with Luis Severino.
No relation, just saying.
No, not at all. But, I mean, to me, this is a guy that also, his hitting screams average. His hitting
screams average, but what does his defense scream to you?
His defense screams minor league talent to me. His defense, I don't want to look at those numbers.
Other than last year's offense production, it screams minor league talent for sure.
Oh, you're right. I mean, last year's did scream average, but the rest of his career, yeah. I mean, he's going to be 26, so he still has time ahead of him. So that's why we are going to send him to the minors. Get him some work in the minors, and then hopefully he improves himself.
Hopefully. I mean, you got to look at it this way. He's on the Orioles. What other team is putting him on their major league club?
That's a good point.
The Tigers?
Maybe. That's really it.
That's the only other team.
Hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Literally. Moving on. Roberto Perez.
You want to take this one? I've been doing a lot of talking today.
I will take this one. Roberto Perez on the Indians. This is actually a really interesting guy. He is an amazing, when I say amazing defensive catcher. 30 defensive runs saved, 41% caught stealing percentage, won the Gold Glove last year, and then he also had 24 home runs. Now, he did hit 239, which is...
That's still, I mean, remember, league average...
for a catcher, that's actually good. That's good.
League average was about 246 last year, 247, somewhere in that range.
This guy is easily a top catcher in the MLB.
And his slugging percentage was solid. I think he's an all-star potential guy, or an all-star guy, excuse me.
I was going
to be an all-star. I think
in the MVP potential.
You think so?
Because
honestly,
he's got the 24 homers, and then he had the 30 defensive runs saved, and he led the league with 41% caught stealing.
You know, I didn't realize that he had 30 defensive runs saved. That kind of makes a big difference to me, especially with those numbers. I could put him as MVP potential. I mean, that's crazy. We have 4 MVP potential guys up there, but they all deserve it.
And there's definitely gonna be another.
Yeah.
Maybe 2
Wonder
more.
what his name is.
At least 2. Maybe at least 1. Maybe 2. We'll see later on, though.
Yeah, we will see. Robinson Chirinos now. You want to take this one as well? You seem like you're on a roll.
I'll take Robinson Chirinos. I just got to type it in.
Then I'll take Salvi next.
Robinson Chirinos. Last year he
Not
was
great at
with
all.
Houston. You know, we don't speak about that team. He went back to Texas though. Good for
Ooh,
him. Good for him. He went back to Texas Rangers and not Houston.
round of applause there.
I mean, his defense. It's not. I mean, last year was actually good. He saved 3 defensive runs, but every other year of his career, it's always been negative.
His offense also hasn't been great.
His offense isn't great. I mean, he had 17 home runs last year and a 238 average with a 347 on base percentage. That's good. That's good for a
How about
catcher.
prior to last year, though? Prior to last year, I know.
Oh well, you know, he probably did that good because he was on the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
That
Let's be real.
Yeah, we gotta use logic here. And he had 18 home runs with Texas, but that's not bad. I still
No, it's
think
not.
personally, I think he's average.
Honestly, I personally would put him as a serviceable starter myself
He's third.
because
Oh well, you know what? He is 36.
he's getting up there in age.
He is
He's
getting
not.
up
He
there
doesn't
in age.
absolutely. He's never blown me away offensively, and as we know, defensively, he could use some work to say the least.
Yeah, he could definitely use some work. I could
So I'm gonna
definitely
put him.
put him in the serviceable starter spot. Be happy with that and sleep good tonight.
Sleep good tonight. You know, I hope I can sleep pretty well tonight too.
If
But
I could get some sleep.
yeah, you never know in this day and age. But next we have Salvador Perez, who coming off that nasty UCL injury last year. He's going to be 30 this year, but he is one of those most productive catchers in baseball in terms of runs. I mean,
Oh my God, yeah.
he's going to get at least 25 home runs, 70 something RBIs, and that Kansas City lineup really needs that.
He's an
That back.
amazing defender.
I mean, if you get him back, he could do pretty well with the team. I mean, he in his last 3 seasons, 2016, he caught 48% stealing. 2017, 27%, but that was around league average. And then 48% again in 2018. I mean, I think he is. I feel like we're loading this tier, but I want to put him in the MVP potential just
I would
because
see.
his run production is
I don't
insane.
want to put him there because he didn't play last year.
But you can't really fault him for that. It was
You
a bad
can't.
injury. And he's been one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent players in baseball throughout his career in
And
terms of catchers.
2018 and before, he was MVP potential.
Definitely.
So I think we could give him the spot because just because of the injury, I think we could give him a break.
And look, he's only entering his 30s this year.
That's true. He already has 8 years in the league. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Gold Gloves. I mean, for sure. He's definitely one of the top catchers in baseball. Still probably injured. He's still a top catcher in baseball. Let's be real.
Definitely. Now, Stephen Vogt. He's going to be in a new uniform this. Oh, yeah, he's going to be in a new uniform this year with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Oh no, excuse me. Well, I'm skipping Sean Murphy for a minute. I hope that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know I look at the wrong guy sometimes.
Why can't I get Vogt?
VOGT.
Spot's alright.
He doesn't really commit any errors. I mean, he only committed 1 error last year, 3 his season before. But he's still not a great catcher. I mean, he lets guys.
Yeah, he's still not.
Quite a bit. He lets guys steal bases quite a bit, but he is decent on the
On the offense, he's not bad at all.
offensive end. I mean, he has over half his hits last year were extra base hits. He had 67 hits, 36 of them were.
That was in San Francisco, though.
True, but
it's a big extra base hit ballpark.
It is, but he has done similar throughout his career.
I could put him average.
I'd actually put him as almost an all-star because he's already a 2-time all-star in his career. I know those were a few years ago now. But he still, even though he's 34 last year, he still hit fairly well.
He did 490 slugging, 804 OPS. I mean,
so he hasn't fallen off that much yet, and
he's shown consistency with every team he's played for.
Yeah, and he's been an all-star for 2 years. I mean, it's a couple years ago, but still, and he only committed one error last year. He could do a little bit better in terms of getting runners out, stealing. But aside from that, I think that his defense is around average.
Mm-hmm.
Now that will bring us to Sean Murphy if we've got enough talking about. Vote.
Sean Murphy. Now, he only played 20 games last year.
Yeah, and he's going to be young. It's hard to gauge him this early in his career. He's going to be 25.
It is. He had 33% caught stealing is actually decent. That's good. It's above league average.
He did fairly well. I don't want to jump the gun on anything this early, though. So
Yeah.
I think it's in the best interest of everyone just to say that he's average as of right now.
That's what I
think. He's still young, but he definitely has the potential really, really soon to go almost all-star, even all-star. Which will bring us over to the other Murphy, Tom Murphy. Not Daniel Murphy, though. He's not.
I still don't think there's no relation, but I am not sure.
No, I don't believe there is either. Tom Murphy, he hit 273 last year, 40 RBIs and 18 home runs. And in terms of fielding, he was also a really good fielding catcher.
He's really good.
He's going to be the guy starting in Seattle. And the thing is, he also played that's just one game, never mind. But fielding, he's also really good. He almost had 40% caught stealing percentage, saved 7 runs. I think he could be an all-star. I mean, he hit fairly well last year, and
he hit
average fielding.
I mean, he had 270. I think he's an all-star for sure. I'd just like to point out 3 games out of the pen, 3 innings, and a 6.0 ERA. So he struck out 2 hitters.
That's not terrible.
Think about it. He struck out 2 hitters. So we've seen that he can strike out a major league hitter. The guy's played everywhere. He's an all-star for sure.
Now here's something I want to point out before we move on to Tony Walters, who happens to be in Colorado, by the way. Tom Murphy was backing up Tony Walters in Colorado up until last year, and as soon as he got off Colorado, he actually put up better numbers.
That's weird.
Isn't it?
That is weird.
But it's cause effect. But anyway, speaking of Tony Walters, here he is.
Tony Walters.
Man's got the craziest mustache I've ever seen. It's not even that crazy, but it just looks like it doesn't belong.
Yeah, no, it definitely does not look like it belongs. The man's got no power whatsoever, and he plays in Colorado.
Yeah, honestly, that says enough itself. But he kind of redeems himself in terms of defense.
His defense, it's good. It's good.
He only had 1 error last year. He caught 34% of his runners stealing, and he had 8 defensive runs saved. I think that is enough to put him in average.
I'd say it's definitely average. If he brought his power numbers up, or even his extra base hits, he could be almost all-star for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 1 home run kind of brings it down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Coors, you got to do better than that. I mean, his slugging percentage in Coors is .329. It's really not great.
Yeah.
But someone that can get the job done fielding, I'm not going to have as many complaints, especially with the 262 batting average.
Yeah, he could definitely get base hits. He doesn't strike out a lot either. 68 strikeouts and 359 at-bats.
Mm-hmm. He just can't expend those hits that much further.
Yeah. He's average.
All right, so we've got Travis d'Arnaud
almost all-star, sorry.
Travis d'Arnaud next. He's going to be listed as a catcher here because he was first in the Tampa Bay Rays depth chart as catcher. And he's not terrible. I mean, he puts up a decent amount of run production at the plate. You could expect 15 home runs from him, 50, 60 RBIs.
He did great once he was traded to the Rays, not the Dodgers. Only one game.
If he plays a decent amount of games for catcher, he'll get 15 home runs, 60 RBIs, no problem. He'll hit around league average, both batting average on base percentage. And he's right around average for a fielder too. I think he's actually almost all-star because he's around average for fielding and he's above average for hitting.
I was going to say he's average.
But his hitting's above average.
His hitting is definitely above average. I mean, 459 slugging, 263 average. He's shown consistently that he could put up 15, 16 home runs in only 90 games.
Exactly.
60, 90 games. So if he plays more, he can definitely put up more. So he could be an almost all-star.
Yeah. Now, he's not the monster the Mets expected when they called him up, but he's honestly not garbage like some Mets fans had originally thought.
No, I honestly think Mets fans give him too much hate.
I'm some Mets fans, by the way. Anyways, Tucker
So,
Barnhart, the career Red.
man's never leaving.
He's never going to leave. It feels like that, doesn't it? To me, he's just your other average run-off-the-mill guy. He's really just average. Nothing jumps out in terms of his offensive stats nor his defensive stats. He's
average.
Oh.
I see average. I look at him and I just see average.
He might be the most average player in the MLB. Not Yasiel like that. Instagram
I don't know how Yasiel Puig is the most average player. I don't know.
If you guys saw that, there was an Instagram post that was going around that said that Yasiel Puig is the most average player in the league. DM us at Double Say Sports on Instagram, and we'll show you the sports.
Yes.
Also, follow us there if you're not already.
Follow us at Double Say Sports.
All of our links will be in the description below. Anyways, enough with our self-advertising. Tyler Flowers is next.
Tyler Flowers.
I always hate this guy just because his last name is soft.
I never thought he was good, personally.
Yeah, he's really good defensively, though. You got to remember that. He saves a lot of
defensively.
defensive runs, but his bat is around average.
He led the league in pass balls this year. And he only threw out 19% of his runners.
Yeah, this year he had a bad year defensively, but prior to that, he had been consistently one of the better defenders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you can necessarily... Actually, you probably could fault him for 1 year because he is 33. I'd still... he's going to be 34 this year. He started to decline last year, especially defensively, and you get to see
I would say serviceable starter.
I'd put him around there, too, because you can see his knees probably aren't going to be getting him anymore. We have Victor Caratini. He's a really good young guy with the Cubs. He's been in the league only 3 years. Going to be 26, so just starting his prime now, in theory. And he hits really well, and he's a good backup to Wilson Contreras. Honestly, both Chicago teams have no worries in terms of catching. And he's a little below average in terms of fielding.
Yeah, just slightly below average. But he also plays a lot of positions. He plays outfield, first, third.
Exactly. His versatility really helps him out. And he's solid with the bat. Nothing crazy special. I mean, he had 11 home runs and 34 RBIs in 95 games.
Nothing crazy. He's a great guy to get off the bench, Every other day you need a guy, backup. Put him in.
But he's better than a backup.
I would say he's always better than a career backup for sure.
I'd say he's around average. If you were on a different team, you put him on, say, I don't know, say somewhere like...
Put him on the Baltimore Orioles or the Tigers. He's the best catcher they got.
He's their best catcher they've had in a decade.
Yeah.
I say that with a grain of salt, by the way.
Orioles,
I know this guy's actually just had, not the Orioles.
Yeah. But anyway, Will Smith.
Well, also, remember, you got to remember that Pudge Rodriguez was on the Tigers, too, so not the Tigers either. But
sure.
Everyone gets what I'm saying. I hope.
we got the point. I got the point, at least.
You got the point, at least.
I clicked on the wrong Will Smith.
What, the actor?
Nope, I clicked on Will Smith, the pitcher. This is Will Smith, the catcher with the Dodgers.
The rookie. Or was the rookie last year.
He was a rookie. And I think he actually had a good rookie year.
He did. I mean, his on base plus slugging was over 900. He had 15 home runs and 42 RBIs in just above 50 games.
That's a very good offensive season.
He's going to be one of the better hidden catchers in the league. And his fielding, I mean, he's caught
wasn't horrible.
The league average, but he had no errors and 4 defensive runs saved. I think he's average. He definitely has a chance.
I was going to say average to almost all-star. I mean, look at those offensive numbers.
I'm putting him on the top end of average. But I think I just want to see one more year out of him, and I want to see a little bit better fielding.
Okay,
Because remember, we've only seen 1 year out of him. It's hard to completely tell just yet.
that's true. That is true.
Wilson Contreras is up
196
here,
at bats.
and
Wilson Contreras.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say something about Will Smith?
No, I'm done
Mhm.
with him.
Now, Wilson Contreras is interesting as well. I mean, he's one of the better hitting catchers in the league as well, as everyone knows. Probably top 5, maybe if not top 10, top 10, if not top 5. He's had back-to-back All-Star appearances, 24 home runs last year and 64 RBIs in 105 games. And he's also round average defensively. He caught almost 30% of his batter stealing and only -1 defensive run saved, which is slightly below average, we all know. But again, his on base percentage was .355, slugging was .533, making a .888 OPS. Mr. DeVito, what do you want to do with him?
He's, we're gonna really stack up that MVP potential, I think.
I don't think I
He
can put him
is,
in potential yet.
he's all-star MVP. He's close. His
I'm putting him right.
defense isn't there.
That's it. That's exactly what's holding me back. I'm putting him around Buster Posey personally because, well, they're kind of like night and day. Posey's lacking in the offense now, and he's doing well defensively. They're kind of opposites in those regards. But I think that Contreras, I think that he just needs to be a little more well-rounded in terms of fielding.
He doesn't need anything on offense, honestly.
No, not at all.
Great.
But at physically fielding demanding position like catcher, you need him to just be a little better than average.
Yeah. I could get by putting him in my all-star.
But he's definitely on the top end of the list. Kind of like I'm assuming this next guy is going to be Wilson Ramos.
Oh, for sure, like this guy.
He put up better numbers than most position players in general in terms of hitting. 288 average, 14 home runs, 73 RBIs, 351 on base percentage, 416 slugging. Those are really good numbers, but alas, his defense, man. His defense it really sucks because you saw guys like Noah Syndergaard giving up an absurd amount of stolen bases, but it was because of Mr. Wilson Ramos. He only caught 15% of his runners stealing last year, and he has never been the greatest defensive catcher, but you still don't even expect that bad out of him. And he had -11 defensive runs saved. Mr. DeVito, what do you want to do?
I see him as an all-star. Personally, I think his offense overweighs the defense. He was an all-star in 2018.
I agree. I mean, I think it could be bias playing a bit of a hand, but I think he's an all-star too.
He also played 141 games last year. For a catcher, that's a lot.
It starts to get to you, and I think that could have been part of the reason, especially towards the end, he was wearing down a little bit. But yeah, I think he's going to be an all-star. He's going to be 32, but it's still early enough in his career. I say early enough loosely, but it's still at the point where he'll be able to put up similar offensive numbers. I don't know what's going to go on defensively because he's had some decent defensive years, but this year was horrible.
Yeah.
It's just, again, another weird thing because I do value defense in a catcher, but it's kind of a similar thing to Gary Sanchez where the numbers offensively are just so good you can't really ignore them.
He's easily an all-star for me.
Now here's another guy, Yadier Molina, known as Yadi.
I would just like to say on the list you gave me, it says Yadier Ramirez.
Yadier Ramirez. I think I made a mistake there.
It's all okay.
I think I made a mistake there because there's no Yadier Ramirez in the MLB to my knowledge.
Yeah, no. I honestly had to look it up to make sure.
No, there isn't.
There's none.
Now,
But Yachty or Molina?
he's going to be 37. People give
He
him a
is.
bad rap because he's old and he's obviously not the 2011 Yachty or Molina that we know. But if you look at his numbers, they haven't really taken as steep of a downfall as
They really haven't.
he still hit, let's say, okay, 17, 18, 19. Hit 18 home runs, 82 RBIs. Then in 2018, 20, 74. Last year, 10 and 57, which is a bit of a decline. But his strikeouts were down. His walks were also down a little bit. But his batting average was actually up. His on-base percentage stayed the same, relatively. And he had just about as many hits. He actually had more doubles. And his fielding still has been right around average, actually slightly above league average. I think people give him a bad rap just because he's getting old and he's not putting up, the
numbers he once was.
Yeah, the 300 batting average.
Because his homers dropped like 7, 4, 8, then it went back 18, 20, 10. That's a little suspicious, I'm not going to lie, but...
Suspicious, not going to lie, with the balls and everything, but I still think, I don't want to say almost all-star, because he's going to be 37, and it's hard to put him at almost all-star at this point in his career, being 37, and his defensive stats are around average. I think average works, though. I know there are going to be so many people out there that want it to be serviceable starter or even career backup, but
no,
that Yachty hate is just unnecessary. And
I think the man could be in the Hall of Fame, honestly.
Oh, 100%. There's not a doubt in my mind he will be a Hall of Famer.
For sure.
But I'm going to put him on the top end of average as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
I think it's fair. Now we have two players left. One of them we know exactly where he's going. But the other one, Yan Gomes. How about you take this one? I mean, he was a guy that was in Cleveland for most of his career until he was with Washington last year. You could take it if you would like.
I'll take Yan Gomes. 31% caught stealing, just above league average. His actually run saved 5. It's much better than I thought. Went into this thinking Yan Gomes was a piece of trash. I'm not gonna lie.
No.
And last year, splitting his time with Kurt Suzuki, he was much better defensively for the Washington Nationals. I mean,
well, it's like night and day between those two.
Oh yeah.
But take his 2013 defensive stats. I know it's not really relevant to the conversation now because it's 7 years ago, but he had 23 defensive runs saved and a 41% caught stealing percentage.
Oh my God.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
That is insane. That's actually insane.
To me, Yan Gomes seems like he's almost an all-star.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I think he still has a decent bat. He had 223 last year, but the year before that, 266.
That was his all-star year.
He's definitely above a lot of players with their hitting ability. His catching ability is definitely above average, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And his on-base plus slugging was still over 700. His hits, he had 70 hits in 97 games. That's very respectable. And 12 home runs, 43 RBIs in those 97 games is still, again, pretty dang good.
It's solid. It really is solid.
It really is, isn't it? Now, this last one.
That'll bring us into...
Yasmani Grandal.
It's pretty much a given.
Seen a new uniform this year, the Chicago White Sox. But we already know where he's going. He's going to be MVP potentially. He's a top 3.
Second best catcher in the league, in my opinion.
In the league. He is the second best catcher in the league. There's not really much debate about it. And that really will wrap this one up. Now, this one, I know it's going to be much shorter than the other one to any of you if you watched it all. We appreciate that. But this one's going to be right around an hour. Slightly above an hour. Sorry about that. But get a little carried away. The other ones will still be under an hour because we only have one player per team. But, Mr. DeVito, thank you for joining me.
Justin, always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure with you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. Check out the channel for more. At some point, actually, I think we're going to be getting a quarterback tier list going soon. Hopefully, we'll record it this weekend. I'm not sure if you're going to be on it or not, Mr. DeVito, but we will see. You will definitely be on the other baseball ones.
I'm not I can't speak.
You're
I'm
not
not as
you're not
educated
our
on the
NFL now.
quarterbacks as I am on the baseball, so I
Okay, we'll
probably
get our
won't be,
NFL.
but you know,
We'll get our NFL analysts on board then.
yeah.
But once again, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Like and
Thank you,
subscribe.
everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Hit that notification bell, and we got links to our Instagrams, Twitters, website, all below in the description below. Have a good one. We appreciate you.
Thank you.